The television lights glow bright, the Today Show stage buzzing with quiet tension. Mark Wahlberg sits across from Hoda Kotb and Savannah Guthrie, promotional notes and cue cards resting on the coffee table between them. The audience applauds politely, and Hoda opens with her usual warm smile. "Mark, welcome back to A Today. Great to have you." Mark nods stiffly, his posture rigid, eyes scanning the studio. From the outset, something seems off. An undercurrent of unease pulses through the air. The camera lingers on Mark's jaw and clenched fists. His typical calmness looks strained. Hoda begins the segment by asking about his new project, a high-stakes action film, full of stunts and intense sequences. Mark answers, keeping measured, addressing the crew, the training regimen, the passion behind the work. But halfway through, Hoda interrupts with a question about a controversy, a past comment he made in an interview that drew criticism. Mark's expression shifts, his voice stiffens, and the smooth flow of the interview stutters. The audience senses the tension rising. The producers exchange glances behind the cameras as Hoda presses on. Hoda frames the question carefully. "Mark, earlier this year you were quoted making remarks about gender roles, which many found outdated or offensive. Can you explain what you meant, and whether you regret it?" Mark's eyes flick to the cameras, then to Hoda. He inhales, leans forward. He begins, "I meant something different, but I see how it was taken the wrong way." A broken bar. His voice is steady but tight. Hoda nods, urging him to continue, pressing for clarity. The studio hushes. The air feels electric. As Mark elaborates, tension builds. He describes how his words were clipped and misrepresented, how the media jumped to conclusions. Hoda gently counters, "But many people felt hurt. Mark, words matter, especially from someone in your position. Don't you think responsibility is part of your platform?" Mark's brow furrows, his tone grows sharper. "Yes, responsibility matters, but I won't be defined by sound bites taken out of context." He gestures with his hand. The audience shifts, sensing the confrontation intensifying. Hoda offers a conciliatory tone. "I'm not trying to put you on the defensive. I'm giving voice to viewers who felt marginalized by that remark." Mark eyes her, jaw clenched. He sits back momentarily, as if gathering restraint. Then he leans in, "I'm sorry to anyone offended, but I also expect fairness. You and I both know how media works, how headlines splinter the nuance." His voice is firm. Hoda pauses, taken aback. The producers inch off screen, worried about how far this is going. Suddenly, Mark's composure cracks. His tone rises, "I have spent decades building a career, trying to do right by people, and I refuse to be torn apart for a phase that was warped in translation." The audience gasps. Hoda's facial muscles tighten. She presses her lips together. Savannah leans forward, concern on her face. Mark's body vibrates with energy. The segment, meant to be a light promotion, has devolved into a heated exchange. The studio feels acute, fragile. Hoda recovers her voice. "Mark, I understand your frustration, but when some media, especially someone as visibly, says something that can be hurtful, it's fair that they're held accountable." Mark's eyes blaze. He has been pushed too far. He snaps. "Held accountable? Yes, but not crucified without chance to explain. I have daughters. I'm a parent. I'm not blind to harm, but I also deserve nuance." He leans back, breathing heavily. The audience remains silent, riveted. On the control booth, audio engineers hover, ready to cut mix. For a moment, there is stunned stillness. Mark closes his eyes, jaw clenched, then opens them. His tone softens, but the underlying tension remains. "I'm not here to dodge responsibility," he says quietly, "but to ask for fairness, for dialogue. I won't be silenced by outrage culture." Hoda's posture softens. She offers a terse nod. Savannah intervenes gently. "Let's take a breath. Mark, can you walk us through the time linear, how it started, where it went off track?" The camera cuts to audience faces, some shocked, some concerned. Mark exhales, his voice calmer but still strong. "It began when an interview asked me hypotheticals about masculinity and roles. I spoke from my upbringing, my faith, my mistakes. Then, out of that, one phrase got amplified. I never meant to diminish voices or experiences. My intention was clumsy, yes, but not cruel." Hoda listens, expression softened. She gestures to proceed. Mark continues, charting how the quote spread, how media took fragments, and how reactions roiled online. He expresses regret for harm, but pushes back on mischaracterization. Hoda picks her next question thoughtfully, so moving forward, how do you intend to repair trust? What's your path to making amends? Mark glances down, then up. I commit publicly to conversations with communities affected. I'll donate to advocacy groups, speak out where I've heard, and remain open to learning. Actions, not just words. His voice is firm, though cautious. The studio audience shifts, some nodding. The tension still hums. A producer off-camera taps Hoda's earpiece. She resumes, we'll look forward to seeing that in the coming weeks. Mark's shoulders relax slightly. He offers a softer tone. I know I have critics, and I accept that. But what's worse is silence, or deflection. I want to own mistakes, but also be judged by the whole. You and I are both public voices, so let's allow space for complexity. Hoda nods, eyes meeting his. She says, that's fair. I appreciate your candor, even in the heat of this moment. The audience applauds quietly, a subdued but heartfelt response. The segment feels like it's closing, but not before one final spark. Suddenly, Mark's gaze flicks to Hoda's note cards. One more thing, he says, his voice low but storming. I hope media stops using me as a symbol for outrage. I'm a man trying, failing, learning. I don't want to be a battleground in somebody else's narrative. Hoda inhales sharply. She responds, voice steady, I see your point. And I'll tell you this, my aim here is not to wage war but to ask necessary questions. The audience sits poised. Cameras pan from Mark's face to Hoda's. For a moment, the tension saturates the room. Mark's voice softens. At the end of the day, nobody's perfect. I'm responsible for how I speak and I've messed up. I accept criticism, but I also demand the chance to speak fully, without getting butchered in the edit. He looks towards Savannah, then Hoda. I hope this conversation itself is part of repair and not just for me, but for discourse. Hoda nods, a hint of relief in her eyes. The segment's producers exchange discreet signals, they need to wrap. But the energy is electric. The audience leans forward. Savannah intervenes gently, we've reached near the end of our time. Mark, thank you for this intense and honest conversation. We hope audiences hear the full picture. Mark sits back, exhaustion and adrenaline mingling. He offers a small nod. Hoda closes with a calmer tone. We'll be watching how your actions unfold. Thank you for coming in and speaking so openly. The cameras frame the three hosts, the glow of studio lights, the weight of what just transpired. The audience applauds, cautiously respectful. As the lights dim and the segment ends, behind the scenes the staff breathe out. Mark stands, gives a curt nod, and exits toward the green room. Hoda watches him leave, eyes troubled, expression reflective. The control room falls silent before erupting in chatter. The Today Show ends that block, but the echo of confrontation lingers. Viewers will debate. Headlines will flash, reactions will mount, but one thing is clear, this segment will be replayed, dissected, and remembered as the day Mark Wahlberg erupted publicly in a storm of regret, frustration, demand for nuance, and raw accountability. In the minutes after the cameras cut, the studio becomes a whirl of muted chaos. Crew members avoid eye contact as Mark stalks toward the dressing room corridor, his footsteps echoing against the polished floor. His publicist, Sarah, hurries behind him, whispering urgent words, but Mark barely registers them. He pushes open the green room door, slams it shut, and stands staring into the mirror. His reflection seems foreign, his jaw tight, eyes stormy, shirt collar damp with sweat. He mutters under his breath, that wasn't supposed to happen. The air conditioner hums loudly, the only sound in the tense silence. Outside, Hoda removes her earpiece and takes a deep breath. Visibly shaken, Savannah leans close, whispering something reassuring, but Hoda's eyes remain distant. I didn't mean to push him like that, she murmurs. A producer approaches cautiously, telling her the control room is already fielding calls from executives and online staff preparing for the segments followed. The clip is already being clipped and shared across digital feeds. Twitter buzzes. YouTube thumbnails sprout within minutes. The Today Show social team debates whether to post the entire interview or a sanitized edit. Meanwhile, In the green room, Mark's publicist hands him a towel and a bottle of water. "You went off script," she says quietly. Mark glares at the wall. "She cornered me, Sarah. I'm not going to sit there and get accused without defending myself." His voice trembles with leftover adrenaline. Sarah sighs. "You know how this plays, right? They'll frame it like you exploded. You've got to get ahead of it." Mark tosses the towel aside, pacing. "Let them." "I told the truth." But deep inside, he knows the media cycle has already started spinning, and control is slipping fast. By noon, news outlets have picked up the confrontation. Headlines flash: Mark Wahlberg clashes with Hoda Kotb on live TV. Clips trend on social media, dissected frame by frame. His tone, her reaction, every word replayed with commentary. Some defend him fiercely, calling it an honest moment of frustration in a culture of outrage. Others criticize him for losing professionalism on morning television. Commentators flood the internet with takes. Within hours, the confrontation morphs from a tense exchange into a viral cultural flashpoint. Mark sits in his hotel suite that evening, television muted, phone buzzing non-stop. Texts pour in from colleagues, friends, and family. His mother leaves a voicemail telling him to stay calm and pray. His agent calls, warning that several sponsors are reviewing their alignment with his current campaign. Mark exhales, gripping the phone tightly. "So this is it," he mutters, staring at the skyline outside. He feels the weight of reputation pressing down years of work. One moment of anger. But somewhere beneath the fatigue, a flicker of resolve begins to stir. Across town, Hoda sits at her kitchen table, replaying the segment on her laptop. She studies her tone, her words, and the way the conversation unraveled. "Did I go too far?" she whispers to herself. The line between accountability and provocation had blurred. Her producer calls, assuring her that NBC supports her professionalism, but Hoda's stomach churns. She doesn't relish conflict. She believes in conversation. Yet something about Mark's visible frustration lingers in her window. Was it anger, or was it pain? She closes her laptop and exhales deeply, conflicted. The next morning, the story dominates entertainment segments across networks. Commentators debate both sides. Was Hoda Kotb fair? Did Mark Wahlberg overreact? Clips loop endlessly on TikTok. Hashtags emerge. #Mark ERUPTS, #Hoda and Mark, #Today Show clash. Fans argue passionately online, dividing into camps. Meanwhile, NBC executives hold an internal meeting about the backlash. One executive says, "It's controversial, but engagement's through the roof." Another warns, "Be careful. This could escalate if Mark responds publicly." But the publicist already knows Mark will respond. That afternoon, Mark records a short video message from his living room, phone propped on a stack of books. He speaks calmly, deliberately. "I know a lot of people saw the interview. I was frustrated. I shouldn't have raised my voice, but I stand by my right to speak honestly." He pauses. "We live in a time where every word gets weaponized. I don't want to fight. I want to understand. I respect Hoda and her work." The video posts to his Instagram and within minutes gains millions of views. The tone surprises many. It's contrite, but still defiant. Hoda sees the video later that evening. She watches quietly, nodding at his acknowledgement. Then she opens her own camera app and records her response. "Mark, thank you for your message. Conversations can be uncomfortable, but that's how growth happens. I respect you too, and I hope we keep talking maybe off camera next time." Her calm, measured tone earns immediate praise online. The internet suddenly shifts. So what was a battle turns into a dialogue. Commenters call it a rare example of two people handling conflict with grace. For a fleeting moment, social media softens. Producers at NBC recognize an opportunity. They propose a follow-up special, a longer, unedited sit-down between Mark and Hoda, broadcast on a streaming platform. Both sides agree, under the condition that it be completely live, no cuts. It's a risk, but it could repair both reputations and set a new example for transparency in media. The announcement itself sparks interest. Headlines shift from clash to reconciliation. Mark prepares carefully this time, determined to show composure and depth. Hoda studies her notes, ready to ask but also to listen. The day of the live follow-up arrives. The set is smaller, more intimate. 2 chairs, warm lighting, no studio audience. Mark walks in first, offering a cautious handshake. Hoda smiles, genuine this time. "Glad you came back," she says softly. He nods. The cameras roll, and the two begin their conversation, not as adversaries, but as two professionals navigating the blurred lines of media, reputation, and humanity. Their tone is calm, introspective. Viewers sense something rare, sincerity on both sides. What began as a televised explosion slowly transforms into understanding. During the interview, Mark opens up about his background and the struggles, the insecurities, the pressure to always appear composed. Sometimes, he admits, the toughest battles aren't on set, but inside your own head. Hoda listens intently, responding not as a journalist chasing headlines, but as a person seeking connection. The audience watching from home floods social media with comments praising their rawness. "This is what real talk looks like," one user posts. Another writes, "Respect to both of them for coming back together after all that heat." As the interview nears its close, Hoda asks one final question: "What did you learn from this whole experience?" Mark pauses for several seconds before answering. "That silence isn't strength," he says quietly. "That sometimes, you've got to face uncomfortable conversations if you ever want to grow." Hoda nods slowly, visibly moved. "And what about forgiveness?" she asks softly. Mark smiles faintly. "I think that's the only way forward." Their words hang in the air, simple yet profound. The feed cuts to a gentle fade out, applause echoing from the control room. Within hours, clips from the reconciliation spread online, overshadowing the earlier viral eruption. Headlines now read, "Mark Wahlberg and Hoda Kotb reunite for honest, healing conversation." Both are praised for maturity and vulnerability. The contrast between the chaos of the first interview and the calm of the second fascinates audiences. Critics call it a rare redemption arc in modern media. Mark's upcoming movie sees a surprising boost in attention. Meanwhile, Hoda receives heartfelt letters from viewers thanking her for showing compassion without compromise. Weeks later, both Mark and Hoda move on to new projects, their reputations not tarnished but transformed. The confrontation that once seemed like a career crisis becomes a turning point, a moment when anger gave way to authenticity. In interviews afterward, both describe it as a lesson in listening. The internet, of course, has long moved on to its next controversy, but fans remember that week vividly. For once, a celebrity meltdown ended not in cancellation, but in growth. And somewhere, in that noisy cycle of outrage and redemption, a little truth managed to survive. The days following the reconciliation broadcast feel surreal for both Mark and Hoda. The relentless media noise that once surrounded them begins to fade into the background. For the first time in months, Mark experiences silence, not the kind that echoes guilt, but the kind that breathes peace. He spends mornings walking through his Los Angeles neighborhood, nodding politely at neighbors who smile and wave. Some shout encouragement, "We saw the interview. Good for you, man." Others simply nod in quiet respect. Mark feels something strange and grounding, a humanity returning to his public life. Meanwhile, Hoda returns to the Today set renewed. The atmosphere is lighter, more reflective. Savannah jokes, "You're trending again, but for the right reasons this time." Hoda laughs, though she still carries the weight of everything learned. During her next segment, she references the experience indirectly, saying, "Sometimes, the hardest stories to tell are the ones where we're part of the story." Viewers respond with warmth, flooding social media with praise for her empathy. NBC releases a statement calling the event a testament to the power of open dialogue. Mark's agent, initially panicked about the controversy, now sees opportunity. "This is the perfect time to shift the narrative," he tells Mark over coffee. "Do something meaningful, not another action flick, something grounded." Mark nods. For years, he's been known for muscle and adrenaline, but this moment feels different. He starts reading scripts that challenge him, dramas, character studies, stories about redemption. One script, about a former boxer mentoring troubled teens, catches his attention. "That's it," he murmurs. "That's the story I need to tell." Production begins a few months later. Under the working title Second Round, the film's tone mirrors his own transformation, raw, reflective, layered with emotion. Critics and fans alike draw parallels between the story and his real-life journey. The director tells him, Channel that interview. Don't perform it, I feel it. Mark does exactly that. Every scene becomes a mirror to his inner healing. By the time filming wraps, he feels lighter. He hasn't just made a movie, he's rewritten a chapter of his life. Art, for once, imitates growth. During press tours for Second Round, journalists inevitably bring up the infamous Today Show moment. But this time, Mark answers calmly, even humorously. It was rough, he admits, but I learned more from that one morning than from a dozen movies. Audiences notice the change as the humility, the perspective. Late-night hosts joke about the Mark Wahlberg redemption arc, and Mark plays along. He's no longer defensive, he's grounded. Hoda, watching one of his interviews, smiles knowingly. She can see the peace in his eyes that wasn't there before. When Second Round premieres, critics hail it as Mark's most personal and mature performance. Reviews highlight the depth of emotion and subtlety he brings to the role. One headline reads, "Wahlberg finds his soul on screen." The movie's success cements his comeback, but more importantly, it redefines his public identity. He's no longer seen merely as an action star, he's a man who faced public failure and turned it into art. After the premiere, Mark quietly thanks his team, hugs his family, and walks away from the red carpet with a peaceful grin. Hoda, too, experiences her own evolution. She begins hosting a special series called Conversations That Matter, focusing on empathy, growth, and communication in public life. Her first guest, a former politician who faced public scrutiny and sought redemption. Critics praise her for her balance, a tough when needed, compassionate always. Viewers connect deeply, calling it a masterclass in humanity. Behind the camera, Hoda keeps a note taped to her desk, "Ask to understand, not to win." It's a lesson born from her encounter with Mark, and one she carries forward daily. Months pass, and the once viral confrontation becomes part of internet folklore, a reference point for discussions on media accountability. University courses on communication use the clip as a case study. Students analyze tone, emotion, and context, debating who was right or wrong. Mark is amused when his daughter shows him a TikTok remix of the argument set to dramatic music. "I've officially become a meme," he jokes. But unlike before, he laughs about it. He's learned to let the world's noise roll off his back. Then, unexpectedly, Hoda and Mark cross paths again at a charity gala in New York. The room hums with chatter and camera flashes. When they spot each other across the ballroom, there's a brief pause before both smile warmly. Mark walks over, glass in hand. "Long time no controversy," he jokes. Hoda laughs, shaking her head. "Let's keep it that way." They talk for several minutes about life, work, and lessons learned. No cameras, no script, they just two people sharing mutual respect. Their handshake this time is relaxed, genuine, and untelevised. After the gala, Hoda reflects on how unpredictably life can connect people. She writes a short column titled "The Day I Learned to Listen Harder." In it, she never names Mark directly, but readers recognize the story. She writes, "Empathy is rarely convenient, but it's always necessary. It turns confrontation into connection." The piece goes viral, praised for its sincerity. Mark reads it on his flight home and smiles softly. He sends her a brief text, "Beautiful piece. Thank you for writing it." She replies with 3 simple words, "Thank you too." Over time, their moment of conflict becomes a symbol for media reform. Industry leaders cite it when discussing the dangers of sensationalism and the need for context. NBC begins offering workshops for on-air hosts about managing live emotional conversations. Mark, invited as a guest speaker, tells the trainees, "You're not interviewing sound bites, you're talking to humans. Remember that." The trainees applaud. It's a full-circle moment, as a man once caught in a PR nightmare now teaching others about empathy and control under pressure. In private moments, Mark occasionally revisits that chaotic day. He watches a short clip on his tablet, just a few seconds of his angry outburst, then switches it off. "That guy was scared," he admits to his wife one evening. "Scared of being misunderstood." She takes his hand and replies, "And now you're not." He nods. Growth, he realizes, isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, patient. It's in the moments you choose peace over pride. The thought brings him comfort, something he once believed fame could never offer. Years later, A documentary filmmaker approaches both Mark and Hoda, both chronicling their shared experience as an example of conflict resolution in media. They agree, on one condition: the film must be honest and no dramatization, no rewriting. When the documentary releases, it receives acclaim for its authenticity. Critics call it a case study in humility. Viewers are moved not by the fight, but by the forgiveness that followed. It becomes clear that what once seemed like career disaster was actually transformation disguised as chaos. During the documentary premiere, Mark and Hoda sit side by side in the front row. The audience applauds as their story unfolds on screen. At the argument, the fallout, the healing, Mark leans over and whispers, "Funny how the worst day can turn out to be the best thing that happened to you." Hoda smiles, eyes glistening. "Maybe that's how life teaches us," she replies. When the film ends, the crowd rises in applause, not for scandal, but for growth. For a brief moment, the world remembers that humanity still sells maybe even more than drama. As time moves forward, both continue to thrive in their respective paths. The memory of that fiery morning lives on not as a scar but as a story of evolution. Mark produces new films exploring truth and redemption. Hoda continues her mission to humanize journalism. Every once in a while, when their paths cross, they laugh about how it all started. One misunderstood question, one raw reaction, and one unforgettable lesson. What began as an eruption became an awakening, proving that even in the glare of public scrutiny, authenticity can still shine brighter than the lights of live TV.